Joe Mercer pulled the trigger the sheriff couldn't, right in front of half the town. And when the smoke cleared, everyone knew who'd be keeping the peace from now on. The sun beat down on dusty Harmony Gulch, baking the wooden buildings and the parched earth. But out on the Mercer ranch, life was different. Watered by a small, reliable spring, the land was green and the cattle fat. And Joe Mercer, all of 16 with eyes as sharp as a hawk's, was a crack shot. Pa taught her young. Said a woman alone in these parts needed to know how to protect herself, but Joe wasn't just good for a girl, she was good, period. She could hit a tin can spinning in the wind at 50 paces. More than that, Joe had a strong sense of right and wrong. Pa always told her, "A gun's a tool, Joe, use it wisely and only when you have to." She took those words to heart. She wasn't looking for trouble, but she wouldn't back down from it either, especially if someone was getting hurt. Most days, she helped her mother with chores around the house or rode fence lines with her father. But every so often, she'd ride into Harmony Gulch just to see what was happening. She liked the bustle of the town, the smell of the blacksmith's forge, and the sound of piano music drifting from the saloon. And she always kept an eye on Sheriff Thompson, a decent man, but maybe a little too comfortable for these troubled times. He was a good man, but Joe had a feeling that Harmony Gulch was about to test him in ways he wasn't ready for. She could sense it in the air, a tension as thick as the dust devils that swirled across the plains. That feeling proved right sooner than she thought. A week later, Joe was riding back from town, a sack of flour and some new needles for her mother tucked behind the saddle. As she rounded a bend in the road, she saw it, a stagecoach overturned, horses screaming and men with bandanas firing rifles. Sheriff Thompson was pinned down behind the overturned coach, returning fire weakly. Joe knew he was outgunned and outnumbered. Without thinking, she spurred her horse forward, rifle already in her hands. She dismounted quickly, using her horse as cover. She took a deep breath, focusing on her training. The first shot rang out and one of the bandits crumpled to the ground. The others, surprised by the sudden appearance of a sharpshooter, hesitated. Joe didn't. She fired again and another bandit fell. Sheriff Thompson, seeing his chance, scrambled out from behind the coach and joined the fight. But it was Joe's steady aim and fearless determination that turned the tide. Within minutes, the remaining bandits were either dead or fleeing into the hills. Joe rushed to the stagecoach, helping the passengers out. They were shaken but unharmed thanks to her quick action. Sheriff Thompson approached her, his face a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "Joe," he said, "you saved us all. I don't know how to thank you." Back in Harmony Gulch, the story of Joe's bravery spread like wildfire. The townsfolk hailed her as a hero. They bought her drinks at the saloon, ginger ale of course, since she wasn't of age, and children ran up to her wide-eyed, asking about the gunfight. Even the mayor, a portly man with a walrus mustache, shook her hand and declared her Harmony Gulch's guardian angel. Sheriff Thompson joined in the celebration, clapping Joe on the back and thanking her again and again. But Joe couldn't help but notice a strange look in his eyes, a flicker of something she couldn't quite place. It wasn't jealousy exactly, but something akin to it. The town held a small ceremony in her honor. They presented her with a silver star, a replica of the sheriff's badge, engraved with the words "For Valor." Joe was touched by the gesture, but she also felt a sense of unease. She didn't want to be a hero, she just wanted to help. That night, Sheriff Thompson came to the Mercer ranch. He sat on the porch with Pa, sharing a bottle of whiskey. Joe could hear their muffled conversation from her bedroom window. "She's a good girl, Jade," Thompson said. "A damn good shot, but this ain't right. I'm the sheriff. I'm supposed to be the one protecting this town." Joe couldn't hear Pa's reply, but she knew he would be offering words of comfort and reassurance. Still, the sheriff's words hung heavy in the air, a dark cloud on the horizon. The second ambush happened just a few weeks later. This time it was the stage carrying the mine's payroll. Joe was in town picking up supplies for her family when she heard the gunshots. She raced towards the sound, her heart pounding in her chest. When she arrived, she saw the stagecoach surrounded by a larger gang than before. Sheriff Thompson was there, but he was standing frozen, his gun hanging limply at his side. His face was pale and his eyes were wide with fear. Joe couldn't believe it. The sheriff, the man sworn to protect the town, was paralyzed by terror. She knew she had to act, but this time the odds were even worse. The bandits were more organized, more ruthless. She took cover behind a water trough and started firing, trying to draw their attention away from the stagecoach. But there were too many of them. Bullets whizzed past her head, kicking up splinters of wood. She knew she couldn't hold them off alone for long. She risked a glance at Sheriff Thompson. He hadn't moved. He was still standing there, frozen in place. Joe realized that if anyone was going to save the payroll and the people on that stagecoach, it was going to be her. She steeled herself, took a deep breath, and prepared for the fight of her life. This time she knew it would be much harder. This time she was truly alone. The whispers started the very next day. They began subtly, hushed conversations in the general store, worried glances in the saloon, but they grew louder, bolder, fueled by fear and uncertainty. "Did you see the sheriff?" Someone would ask. He just stood there, frozen like a rabbit in the headlights. The townspeople of Harmony Gulch had always relied on Sheriff Thompson. He was their protector, their shield against the lawlessness of the West. But now they had seen him fail. They had seen him crumble under pressure, and they couldn't unsee it. They started looking at Joe differently. No longer just a rancher's daughter, she was now their unspoken hope. They sought her out, asking for her opinion on matters of security, seeking her reassurance that things would be all right. Old Man Hemlock, who ran the general store, stopped Joe on the street. "Joe," he said, his voice trembling, "those bandits, they'll be back. What are we going to do?" Martha, the baker, brought Joe a loaf of freshly baked bread. "Thank you, Joe," she said quietly, "for everything." Even the children who had once idolized Sheriff Thompson now followed Joe around with admiring eyes. They saw her as strong, brave, and capable, everything the sheriff no longer seemed to be. The weight of their expectations settled on Joe's shoulders, heavy and unwelcome. She hadn't asked for this, she just wanted to help. But Harmony Gulch was desperate, and they were looking to her for salvation. At first, Joe resisted. She wasn't a lawman, she was a rancher's daughter. But the pleas of the townspeople, the fear in their eyes, were hard to ignore. So she started small. She began patrolling the streets of Harmony Gulch in the evenings, her rifle slung across her back. She talked to the merchants, asking about any suspicious activity. She kept an eye on the saloon, making sure things didn't get too rowdy. She even helped a few of the younger children learn how to shoot, just in case. Sheriff Thompson, meanwhile, remained largely absent. He spent most of his time in his office, the blinds drawn, a bottle of whiskey his only companion. He barely spoke to anyone, and when he did, his voice was gruff and distant. Joe's unofficial patrols brought a sense of calm to Harmony Gulch. People felt safer knowing she was around. They started calling her Sheriff Joe, even though she didn't wear a badge. One evening, a group of rowdy cowboys started causing trouble at the saloon. Sheriff Thompson was nowhere to be found. Joe stepped in, calmly but firmly ordering them to leave. They scoffed at first, but when they saw the steel in her eyes and the steady hand on her rifle, they quickly changed their tune. As they rode out of town, one of them turned back and shouted, "You think you're so tough, girlie? Just wait, we'll be back." Joe didn't flinch. She knew they probably would, but she also knew that she would be ready for them. For Harmony Gulch, she had to be. The shame ate at Sheriff Thompson like a cancer. He had failed. He had frozen, and everyone knew it. He couldn't look people in the eye anymore. The whispers followed him everywhere, a constant reminder of his inadequacy. He started drinking more, spending his days lost in a haze of whiskey and regret. He neglected his duties, ignoring complaints, and avoiding any situation that might require him to act. The badge that once represented his honor now felt like a brand, searing his skin with shame. He resented Joe not because she was a bad person, but because she was a constant reminder of his failure. Every time someone called her Sheriff Joe, it was a knife twisting in his gut. He saw the admiration in their eyes, the trust they placed in her, and it made him sick with jealousy. He started to lash out, making snide remarks about Joe behind her back, questioning her abilities and undermining her authority whenever he could. He even spread rumors about her family, trying to tarnish her reputation. His friends tried to help him, to talk him out of his despair, but he wouldn't listen. He was too far gone, consumed by his own shame and resentment. He saw Joe as the enemy, the one who had stolen his honor and his position. He vowed to get it back, no matter the cost. He didn't care any more about protecting Harmony Gulch. He only cared about reclaiming his pride, and in his twisted mind that meant destroying Joe Mercer. Harmony Gulch was now a town divided. On one side were those who openly supported Joe. They saw her as their savior, the only one capable of protecting them from the growing lawlessness. They trusted her judgment and respected her authority, even though she held no official position. On the other side were those who remained loyal to Sheriff Thompson, either out of loyalty, habit, or a belief that a woman had no place in law enforcement. They whispered about Joe behind her back, calling her a meddler and a troublemaker. They accused her of trying to usurp the sheriff's authority and of being power-hungry. The division ran deep, splitting families and friendships. Arguments erupted in the saloon, at the dinner table, and on the streets. The tension was palpable, a constant undercurrent of animosity that threatened to boil over at any moment. Even Joe's own family felt the strain. Her mother worried about her safety, begging her to stop patrolling the town. Her father, while proud of her courage, feared that the situation was spiraling out of control. The division made Joe's job even harder. She had to navigate the conflicting loyalties and the simmering resentment while trying to maintain order and protect the town. It was a thankless task, and she often wondered if it was worth it. But she couldn't abandon Harmony Gulch. Not now, not when they needed her most, even if half the town hated her for it. One sweltering afternoon, a delegation of town leaders, led by the mayor and the mine owner, Mr. Harding, approached Joe at the Mercer ranch. They looked grim, their faces etched with worry. "Joe," the mayor began, his voice heavy with concern, "things in Harmony Gulch are getting out of hand. The bandits are getting bolder, and Sheriff Thompson, well, he's not himself." Mr. Harding stepped forward. "We need someone to protect us, Joe, someone we can trust, someone who isn't afraid." The mayor continued, "We've talked it over and we've come to a decision. We want you to be our sheriff, Joe, officially." Joe was stunned. She had never imagined that things would go this far. "But what about Sheriff Thompson?" she stammered. He's no longer fit for duty," Mr. Harding said bluntly. "We're prepared to offer him a generous pension, but he can't continue as sheriff." The mayor nodded in agreement. "We know it's a big responsibility, Joe, but we believe you're the only one who can save Harmony Gulch." He handed her a letter sealed with the town's official emblem. "Think about it, Joe. We need your answer soon." As the delegation rode away, Joe stared at the letter in her hand. The weight of their request pressed down on her, heavy and inescapable. She knew that accepting the position would mean even more responsibility, even more danger, and even more resentment from those who remained loyal to Sheriff Thompson. But could she really turn her back on Harmony Gulch when they needed her most? The decision was hers, and hers alone. Joe spent a sleepless night wrestling with her decision. She spoke with her parents, seeking their counsel. Her mother, ever cautious, urged her to decline. "It's too dangerous, Joe," she pleaded. "You're just a girl, you shouldn't have to carry the weight of the whole town on your shoulders." Her father, however, saw the determination in her eyes. He knew that Joe wouldn't back down from a challenge, especially when lives were at stake. "It's your decision, Joe," he said, "but whatever you choose, know that we'll support you." The next morning, Joe rode into Harmony Gulch, her face set with resolve. She walked straight to the mayor's office and handed him her reply. "I'll do it," she said, her voice firm. "I'll be your sheriff." The mayor's face lit up with relief. "Thank you, Joe," he said. "You won't regret this." He immediately arranged a small ceremony in the town square. Joe was sworn in as the new sheriff of Harmony Gulch, taking the oath with a mixture of trepidation and determination. The mayor presented her with a new badge, a gleaming silver star that felt heavy in her hand. As she pinned it to her shirt, she saw Sheriff Thompson standing in the crowd, his face a mask of bitterness and resentment. Their eyes met, and Joe felt a shiver run down her spine. She knew that this was just the beginning. The real battle was yet to come, and it wouldn't just be against the bandits. It would be against the man she had once saved, the man who now saw her as his enemy. From day one, Sheriff Thompson made Joe's life a living hell. He refused to leave town, even though the town council had offered him a generous pension. He haunted the streets, a grim specter of what he once was, his presence a constant reminder of Joe's usurpation. He actively undermined her authority at every turn. He spread false rumors about her, questioned her decisions in public, and even sabotaged her investigations. He rallied his loyalists, stoking their resentment and encouraging them to defy Joe's orders. He hid evidence, released prisoners, and generally made it impossible for Joe to do her job effectively. He became a one-man wrecking crew, determined to tear down everything Joe was trying to build. One evening, a stagecoach was robbed just outside of town. Joe organized a posse to track down the bandits, but Thompson secretly alerted the outlaws, giving them a head start and leading the posse on a wild goose chase. When Joe confronted him about it, he just sneered. "You're not a real sheriff, Joe," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're just a little girl playing dress-up. You'll never be able to protect this town." The power struggle between Joe and Thompson became a constant backdrop to life in Harmony Gulch. It was a battle for the heart and soul of the town, a fight between the old guard and the new, between fear and hope. And in the middle of it all was Joe, trying to hold everything together, even as it threatened to fall apart. The outlaws, sensing the chaos in Harmony Gulch, became bolder than ever. They saw the power vacuum, the divided loyalties, and the constant infighting, and they exploited it to their advantage. Stagecoaches were robbed with increasing frequency. Cattle were rustled from local ranches. Even the mine's payroll, the lifeblood of the town, was targeted again and again. Joe tried her best to maintain order, but her efforts were constantly hampered by Thompson's sabotage and the town's internal divisions. She spent sleepless nights patrolling the streets, organizing posses, and trying to keep the peace, but it felt like she was fighting a losing battle. One particularly brutal attack on a local family pushed the town to its breaking point. The outlaws, led by a notorious gunslinger named Black Bart, raided the Miller farm, killing the parents and stealing their livestock. The townspeople were outraged. They demanded justice, but Thompson did everything he could to prevent Joe from pursuing the outlaws. He claimed there wasn't enough evidence, that it was too dangerous, that they should just let it go, but Joe refused to back down. She knew that if she didn't act, the outlaws would only become more emboldened. She rallied the townspeople who still trusted her and formed a posse, determined to bring Black Bart and his gang to justice, with or without Thompson's help. The violence in Harmony Gulch was about to reach a boiling point. The pursuit of Black Bart took Joe and her posse deep into the rugged canyons outside Harmony Gulch. As they tracked the outlaws, Joe was forced to make increasingly difficult decisions. One young member of the posse, eager to prove himself, wanted to execute a captured outlaw without a trial. Joe, despite her anger and grief over the Miller family, refused. "We're not like them," she said firmly. "We uphold the law." But her decision was met with resistance. Some members of the posse felt that the outlaws deserved no mercy. Joe had to use all her authority to maintain control, reminding them that they were there to bring the outlaws to justice, not to become them. As they closed in on Black Bart's hideout, Joe faced another moral dilemma. She knew that a direct assault would likely result in casualties, both among the posse and the outlaws. But she also knew that if she didn't act decisively, Black Bart and his gang would escape and continue to terrorize the town. She considered her options, weighing the lives of her friends and neighbors against the need to protect Harmony Gulch. The weight of leadership pressed down on her, heavy and suffocating. She realized that being sheriff wasn't just about shooting straight. It was about making impossible choices, about sacrificing some for the good of many. And she wasn't sure she was ready for that. Did the ends justify the means? Where did she draw the line? These questions haunted her as she planned their final assault. As Joe and her posse prepared to storm Black Bart's hideout, they were ambushed. It wasn't Black Bart's gang, but Sheriff Thompson and a group of his loyalists. Thompson stepped forward, his face twisted with rage. "This ends here, Joe," he snarled. "You've gone too far. You think you can just waltz in here and take over my town? I won't let you." Joe was shocked. "Thompson, what are you doing? We need to stop Black Bart." "Black Bart is your problem," Thompson retorted. "My problem is you. You stole my job, my honor, my life, and now I'm going to take it all back." A tense standoff ensued. The posse, loyal to Joe, faced off against Thompson and his men, their guns drawn. Harmony Gulch's internal conflict had reached its bloody climax. Joe knew she had to talk Thompson down, but his eyes were filled with a dangerous mix of hatred and desperation. She tried to reason with him, reminding him of his duty to protect the town, but her words fell on deaf ears. "It's over, Joe," Thompson said, his voice trembling. "Either you leave Harmony Gulch, or we settle this here and now." Joe knew that she couldn't back down, not now, not after everything she had sacrificed. She raised her rifle, her heart heavy with sadness. "I don't want to do this, Thompson," she said, "but I will protect this town even from you." The final battle for Harmony Gulch was about to begin, a tragic confrontation between two people who had once stood on the same side. Before anyone could fire, a voice boomed from the canyon walls. "Hold it right there." Black Bart and his gang appeared, surrounding both Joe's posse and Thompson's men. They had been watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Looks like you two are having a little disagreement," Black Bart sneered. "Well, let's settle it right now. Whoever wins gets to deal with me." A chaotic gunfight erupted, with Joe's posse and Thompson's men caught between Black Bart's gang. Joe saw Thompson fall, wounded, and for a moment she hesitated. Despite everything, she couldn't let him die. She fought her way to him, shielding him from the bullets. "Thompson, we need to work together," she shouted. "We can't beat them if we're fighting each other." Thompson looked up at her, his eyes filled with a flicker of understanding. He saw the genuine concern in her face, the willingness to risk her own life to save him. He realized that everything he had done was wrong. "You're right, Joe," he said weakly. "I'm sorry I messed up." Together, Joe and Thompson, along with their respective followers, turned their guns on Black Bart's gang. The fighting was fierce, but with Joe's sharpshooting skills and Thompson's renewed determination, they managed to drive the outlaws back. Black Bart, seeing that he was outnumbered, retreated into the canyons, vowing revenge. But for now, Harmony Gulch was safe, and for the first time in a long time, the town was united. In the aftermath of the battle, Thompson, humbled and remorseful, announced his resignation. He publicly endorsed Joe as the rightful sheriff of Harmony Gulch, urging everyone to support her. He decided to leave Harmony Gulch for good, seeking a fresh start and a chance to redeem himself. Joe, however, had been deeply affected by the events of the past few months. She had seen the best and worst of humanity, the courage and the cowardice, the loyalty and the betrayal. She realized that being sheriff was more than just a job. It was a calling, a sacrifice. She gathered the townspeople in the square. "I've thought long and hard about this," she said, her voice clear and strong. "And I've decided that Harmony Gulch needs a different kind of leadership, someone who can unite us, not divide us, someone who can build bridges, not walls." She paused, taking a deep breath. "I'm not that person, not yet anyway. I'm still just a rancher's daughter. I have a lot to learn." She announced that she would be stepping down as sheriff, but she would remain in Harmony Gulch, helping to rebuild the town and supporting the new sheriff, whoever that might be. She encouraged the town to come together to heal the wounds of the past and to build a better future, a future where fear was replaced by hope and division by unity. Harmony Gulch, inspired by Joe's selflessness and courage, began to heal. They elected a new sheriff, a wise and respected member of the community. And Joe, the sharpshooting rancher's daughter who had saved them all, became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, courage and compassion can prevail. Her time as sheriff was over, but her legacy would live on forever.